Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Welcome to our 127th installment of the Torah portion of the week. That's right, we're almost three weeks in a row. Unbelievable. Holding my Parshas Bechukosai. For most people, it will be Parshas Bahar. Still a week behind outside of Israel. It'll take a little while to catch up. Parshas Bechukosai speaks about the miracles, the blessings, and the curse. Talks about Amelus B'Torah, striving in Torah. Speaks about the Tochacha, the admonition, the curses, punishment for not doing God's will, and all that. So, I want to see one aspect of that. It says in the book of Leviticus, chapter 26, verse 41, when it talks about the curses, it says, I too will blade towards them with casualness, God saying, and I will bring them into the land of their enemies. Perhaps then their unfeeling heart will be humbled and they will gain appeasement for their sin. Right, unaffiliated heart over here, something we're going to harp on, because unfeeling over here means that the heart is literally means uncircumcised. Right, that the heart is uncircumcised. It means unfeeling, it's dulled. Right, and it should be humbled. They're getting appeasement for their sin. Right, so I want to speak about the uncircumcised heart and this, this idea. So says Moiv Rabbi, Rav Agon, Ramoshter Moshlita, should be well. Says in Tam Vadas, in his book on the Parsha, he says that you need over here humbleness. Right? You need to be subservient, so to speak. Subservient to who? Obviously subservient to God. Because he explains that this subservience is the essence of Shuvah, is the essence of repentance. And also, it's the essence of suffering that we get, right? Because when a person does something wrong, and they're going to suffer, right? They're going to get punished. So the essence of suffering is to realize we've done something wrong. To realize we've gone against the king. And that the reality is we wouldn't have anything without God. God gives us everything. Right? A person has to be careful of gaiva. Right? One of the worst character traits a person can have, being conceited. Now what that does, it takes God out of the picture. As a person may say, I took myself out of the womb despite my parents. I became who I am. You have to realize that, even if they studied hard and they worked hard and they were successful, the only reason they were successful is because God wanted them to be successful. A person can work hard, not be successful. You might say, well, it's their own fault, they didn't know how to market, they didn't this, all kinds of different things. But the reality is, we wouldn't be anywhere without God. So my Rabbi here says, we have to realize we'd be nothing without Him. And what is that going to do? So these suffering that we're going to get is going to awaken us in how we should serve God better. And what happens when we sin. Right? So we see over here that Yisurim, or suffering, the purpose is not to break a person. The purpose is to awaken in them, to realize they've done things wrong, to realize they have to fix themselves up, they have to be better. Right? And when these things happen, person should shake, person should be in fear, right? And realize all these things have happened because of our sin. So Rabbi here points out that this subservience, this understanding of what's going on is the essence of what tshuva is. So he continues and says it's also explicit in Rabbeinu Yonah of Gerondi in his epic work Shari Tshuva, the Gates of Repentance, that he says in the Iker Hashvi, the seventh main point, main thing over there, is the subservience of your heart, humility, right? Being humble. So too the Rambam, the laws of repentance, says when a person's in exile, it atones for his sin, because then he's going to realize when he's by himself, no one's around, right? He's going to be humble. Right? Imagine a person sends himself far away, nobody knows him, he goes out to the desert, right, or wherever he goes. What does it bring about? Humility, humbleness. And through that he merits to get atonement. So the Rambam says that exile is a good thing. Right? Exile brings a person to tshuva, to humility, to realize who's above him, who helps him, how he survives in this world. And that's a good thing. So through that, he should get atonement. So then he says, if you look at Onkelos, Aramaic translation, what does the Aramaic translation over here say? The Aramaic translation says that he should have a broken heart from the stupidity that he does. Right? And this uncircumcised heart, right? Orla over here, which literally means his foreskin, the language of stupidity. So he says the foreskin, right? What's the purpose of it? Right? The foreskin has one purpose, and that is to take it off. Now some people will say, difference of opinion, throughout the generations, like every 4 or 5 years there'll be difference of opinion, whether circumcision is good against cancer, it's not good against cancer. But everyone agrees, foreskin, right? Certainly for a Jew, what's its purpose? To come off. That's what it's created there for. So by taking off the foreskin, it is a sign that our bodies are subservient to God. It shows that we're here for the purpose of serving God, and that our bodies really aren't ours. We have to use them to the best of our ability, to serve Him, to keep His mitzvahs, etc. But the reality is, there's a command to take off part of it, right, in order to show our subservience to God and His law. And that's what we have to do. So someone who sins, he has an uncircumcised heart. Right? This uncircumcised heart means that his mind doesn't have control over his desires, but rather he continues to go after his desires. Right? You see no better example than Esav Arosha. If we look at Uncle Esau, Yaakov's brother, right? He was just as good in learning as Yaakov. Some say even better. Extremely bright. Problem was that he went after his heart, and his heart destroyed him. Made him go after desire. So the uncircumcised part of us that needs to be taken off is to curb desire. That's what we're doing here. We're allowed to enjoy this world, right? Unlike the Christians who will say everything is bad, right? Everything is evil, etc. So we hold that no, the world's actually very good. Man may have corrupted it, but even so, we have a choice of whether to go according to our desires or not. So someone who's unbridled, doesn't work on themselves, has this uncircumcised heart, what does it cause them to do? Go after their desires. So we all have desires, right? Some have stronger desires than one thing than another, right? Regardless, we all have drives. So we have to know how to harness them. We have to know how to use them. But if we leave them just to our desires, and the fact that we don't fight against them, we don't work hard to be better, and all that, so we end up like Esav, right? That he's willing to sell his birthright, his spiritual birthright, for a bowl of lentils. His desire is so strong, he can't win. He can't fight it. So the desires control him. So therefore, if a person doesn't take off this foreskin, then how can he subject himself to God's will? Now, even with taking it off, a person's still going to have desires. A person's still going to have drives. But the reality is, he can harness them in a good way. He can subjugate himself to God's will, to God's law. Do what God wants. Doesn't mean he's not going to have an evil inclination. Doesn't mean he's always going to do the right thing. But the fact that if he doesn't take this off, how in the world can he serve God? How in the world can these desires be tamed? So you're going to say, well, a non-Jew, a non-Jew wants to be a Noahide. They don't convert. They don't have any interest in converting, or they can't convert. So what about their desires to be strong and belief in God and serving Him? So the reality is they don't have an obligation to take off the foreskin. If they want to, they can, but they don't have the same obligation. Nonetheless, if they keep the universal laws, even if they don't take off the foreskin, it would seem to say that they can subjugate themselves to God. Now, obviously, they need direction. Obviously, they need guidance. Right? They won't be able to do it on their own. But for a Jew, doesn't even get up to bat. The fact that this foreskin is still there, and he has this break between the mind and the heart, and it's unbridled, how can he subjugate himself to God's will? Right? Seems like an impossibility. So that's why the Targum, the Aramaic translation, calls the language of Aro, right, circumcised, calls it tipsha, stupidity, foolishness. Because the reality is that a person is a fool just going after his desires and not striving to do God's will. Because when you look at what we do in this world and what our obligation is, right? So, certainly for a Jew, there's a lot to do, a lot of mitzvahs to do. We got to purify our thoughts, purify our minds, our hearts. But how could it be that a person does not make himself subservient to God's will. How can it be that a person just goes after desire? So I would tell you, it's very simple. We'll look at the Torah as like an anchor, or like a rudder, let's say. You know, if a person was in the ocean on a sailboat and the rudder goes overboard, where's the sailboat going to go? In any direction. Right? It's not grounded. It doesn't have direction. A Jew without Torah, same thing. He can go in any direction. Right? But most likely in the wrong one. Because if you don't have that spiritual guide, how are you going to get to where you need to get to in spiritual terms? It's impossible. There's no one to guide you. So a person will do the desire of his heart. So there might be things he might do right just because it's a deterrent. You know, he won't steal because if he does and he gets caught, he'll go to jail or do other things. Right? So there may be deterrents out there in a certain way to keep a person on the straight and narrow path. But you see, day in and day out, people stray. People do the wrong thing. People end up in jail. Not like, you know, jails are not overcrowded. Jails are plenty crowded. So I guess there are certain things that are deterrents, but I guess not enough to keep a person on the straight and narrow path. Now you might say, you know, Torah itself, does that keep a person on the straight and narrow path? It should. If a person taps in properly, if a person has proper guidance, which is crucial, then a person can strive to reach high spiritual levels by keeping what he needs to keep. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean there won't be struggles. And it doesn't mean a person may not, may fail. He certainly may fail. But at least you have a fighting chance if you try and fight against your desire. Or desires. Because if a person says, what can I do? If you put it in front of me, I'll eat it. Right? Led by themselves, they're going to fail because they have no interest in fighting. Okay, I lost the battle. I know I lost the battle. It's like saying I lost the battle before I started. So losing the battle before you started, you don't even get up to bat. It's game over. You've given up. You're going to say, okay, so I give in to my desires. Big deal. You know, it doesn't hurt anyone. Let's say for argument's sake it doesn't. So like, what's the big deal? So over here, you know, think about what we're saying. We're saying that desires of a person's heart, and a person goes in that direction, and he goes in a negative way, he doesn't nullify himself to God's will. It means, like we said, by Esav, he's giving up the next world for the sake of a bunch of lentils, for a ball game, for a movie. Right? He's giving up the next world for the sake of right now. Isn't that stupidity? Right? Isn't that foolishness? Wouldn't we all agree? If someone smokes, and knows smoking is bad, and knows smoking could kill you, shorten your life, but they may say, I can't fight against my desire, I enjoy it too much. But it's going to take life, it's going to take years out of your life. So in essence, that's true. But you see, the enjoyment is too good. My Rabbi once heard a doctor speak about smoking and how bad smoking is and what it does and what it causes. And then after the lecture, 2 minutes later, you see him smoking a cigarette. So my Rabbi asked him, I don't understand. You just gave this whole lecture saying how bad it is to smoke, and you yourself smoke. So he said, I'd rather give up some years of my life than have to fight against my desire, my enjoyment to smoke. In other words, I'm not willing to fight it. It's going to kill me. Right? Essentially, it's going to kill me and cut off years of my life. So they'll say it's worth it because I just get too much enjoyment out of it. That's foolishness. There's an obligation to guard our body, to keep it healthy. If not, it could cut down our lives. No question. Is that going to stop a person from eating? No. A person has to know how to eat, know what to eat, how to eat smart. But if a person says, I don't care, so it'll kill me, and I'll die, maybe years earlier, but you're telling me I should limit the food I eat? I should limit the calories or the sugar. No matter how bad it is, it's geschmack, it's great. Well, I can't eat ice cream whenever I want. I can have my favorite cookies. You can't limit me. Why should I suffer? I'm not in this world to suffer. I want to enjoy life. I'm not going to be here that long, so I want to enjoy it to the best of my ability. But you're going to lose years, potentially. So the person answered, okay, I'll lose years, but it's worth it. It's worth it because I'm not going to give up these desires. That's foolishness. So then Rabbi says, when it comes to sins, for example, speaking Lashon Hara, speaking badly against others, or wasting your time, or looking at things or places where you shouldn't be looking. What is the source? What is the source of the sin? The source of the sin is desire. So a person has to be very careful that they don't act in a way that it's like they're going to have an uncircumcised heart and go after it. So in today's generation, we don't have the philosophers that we used to have. People thinking, people, taking apart, verses in the Torah and what they mean. And, it's not about these big thinkers today. Whether this is true, it's not true, whatever. We don't have thinkers today. Big philosophers. Right? 99% of all people, what are they stuck on? They're stuck on desire. Right? They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to subjugate themselves, quote unquote, to God's will. They want to do what they want to do. So you get these mediocre, lukewarm Jews, cardiac Jews, that will keep Judaism to a point. Right? To a point of inconvenience. If it's not convenient, forget it, I'm not going to do it. So for them, it's about fulfilling desire. It's about enjoying life. It's not about being boxed in. It's not about limitations. So essentially, they're like the Greeks. What do the Greeks do? They worship the body. Yeah, you had philosophers. People say, oh, but you had Socrates, Aristotle, Plato. Aristotle was a great thinker. Great philosopher. He was also a disgusting person. So Aristotle said there are two different Aristotles. There's Aristotle, the philosopher. There's Aristotle, the one who does things that probably aren't so good. So in Judaism, no, doesn't work that way. It's either what I do is right or it's not right. You can't compartmentalize. Say, okay, I'm like this today and I'll be like this tomorrow. I'll be a Jew in my heart, but I won't do anything outside. I don't want to show I'm too Jewish, God forbid. But I want all the trimmings. I want all the benefits without keeping anything. Or keeping very little. So that was the mistake of the Zionists. Because when the secular Zionists came, they wanted a state of Jews. Not, that was their Jewish state, a state of Jews. Just like English live in England, Albanians in Albania. Jews live in Israel. Okay, if they couldn't get Israel, they'll take Argentina, they'll take Uganda. Right, but the country itself, maybe for them is important to a certain extent. But if they live in the country, it has nothing to do with mitzvahs. There's no connection to history. So, the body without a soul doesn't exist. Judaism without Torah is like a body without a soul. Alright, the soul doesn't go in, the body dies. Or the soul goes out, the body dies. So Judaism without Torah, without mitzvahs, even if you're in the land but you don't keep anything, disappear. Again, it doesn't matter, right? We're not talking, these great philosophers today. What we're talking about is this idea of taking the land without what's behind it. Because if you read the Torah from cover to cover, it's pretty clear. God gave the Jewish people the Torah. God gave the Jewish people the land of Israel. And, make no mistake, it belongs to us. But it belongs to us with a price. What's the price? The price is we have to do the right thing. We have to keep what the Torah says. So therefore, if you're going to go in the land is dependent on keeping the mitzvahs. Not just the land itself. Not just being, a Jew in the land of Israel without any connection to its history. Right, to the Torah, it won't work. Isn't that the whole base of Hatikva? To be an Am Chovshi in their own land, to be a free nation. What's a free nation? Interpretation. Without mitzvahs. Right, a free nation to do what they want, like any other nation. So that's a disaster. And even if I would agree, which I don't, but most people know, even if I would agree that would be the way to go, it doesn't work. So in this Zionist state, for the last 60 years, totally miseducating, children of the generations, teaching them a Torah without mitzvahs. And it's all about kol chotzim v'yadi, the power of our hands. Look, we got nuclear weapons. We pushed away the Arabs. We're in charge, the power of us. But the reality is, without God behind the scenes, this state would never exist. Get all these Arab countries want to destroy it. In every war, been successful, been absolutely miraculous. Right? No question. So, when we look at what's going on today, in general, in the Jewish world, what sells is this idea of the cardiac Jew. No responsibility for their actions. Take a little bit of the trimmings. Pass a little bit down to your kids. And that's it. Right? They'll feel guilty. They want to give them something, some level of Judaism. But the end result, again, is a disaster. If it doesn't work, and the whole point of Judaism is to perpetuate itself, right, generation after generation, we see that by the Haggadah. As the Torah says, you're going to tell your son in that day, right, on Passover at night, you're going to tell over the story of the Exodus from Egypt, you're going to go into all the details, and you're going to tell them what happened to Jewish history. Right? So that's a Torah obligation. So if you just tell over the story but doesn't mean anything, rub it up double, let's eat. Symbolism doesn't mean anything. You're going to pass that down? Not a chance. But it says if you're gonna give that over to your kid every generation, right? Every year you're gonna give that over to him. He's gonna give it over to his kid eventually, right? And that's the Torah command. But if he doesn't have a kid to give it over to the next generation, or they're not interested, that's not what the point of the Torah is, right? The Torah is for all generations. Definitely for all generations. So, if it's for all generations, it's supposed to stay, it's supposed to stick. But if you have a generation, or a number of generations, that they don't care, and all they care about is filling their stomachs, going to ball games, doing what they want, quote-unquote enjoying life in the real world, so it doesn't make them happy. Right? Doing whatever they want, clear, most people are unhappy. But be that as it may, what's the end result? The end result is when you give in to desire. Even if you want to be a big-time Zionist. You talk about the land, you come visit, year after year. The purpose is to perpetuate. If you were to ask the previous generation, if we don't keep Torah properly or do something, the Torah's going to die. If you were to ask that previous generation 50 years ago, they say, no, you can't let Judaism die. Judaism's too important. Why'd they think that? Weren't they cardiac Jews? They were, but they have a sense of what Torah is. They have a sense of what Judaism is. Why? Because their parents gave it to them. And their parents gave it to them. It was much stronger, but it's got diluted. So the desires that took them away from Torah, that cardiac Jew mentality, make no mistake, is an absolute disaster. I've seen recently, more than recently, but, some people that, let's say, keep some level of Judaism. Right? Let's say they're conservative. And they keep kosher, and they eat fish out or whatever. Right? In a non-kosher restaurant. So let me ask a very simple question. You want to keep whatever standard you want, even though, fish cooked on a non-kosher grill means the fish isn't kosher, so you're not doing anything. It's just still not kosher. So the reality is, what do? So at least the small level, the little level that you keep, if that, you sit there and show everyone, I went to this non-kosher restaurant. I went to this other non-kosher restaurant. Right, so my assumption is you ate there. Pretty good assumption. Unless proven otherwise. Maybe just had cocktails. Maybe I should give them the benefit of the doubt. Not interested in giving the benefit of the doubt. I'm assuming they ate there. Right? So you have this non-kosher restaurant, that non-kosher restaurant, and you're bragging, this is where I am. You really keep kosher? Flaunting the fact, even if you don't know that much, flaunting the fact that I'm doing this in public and showing the whole world. This is my dinky level of kashrus. You think God's going to give you a round of applause? It used to be. Total embarrassment, shunder. In this world, previous generations, to be homosexual. Being homosexual, you're in the closet. Today, not only are you out of the closet, but the mitzvah to parade around. No embarrassment. So you say it's an alternative way. Not according to the Torah. There is no alternative way. Marriage is it. Makes it pretty clear. Person may have a strong desire towards that, whatever. See, it's one thing It's one thing whatever you do in the privacy of your own home. It's another thing put it on social media or be out there and flaunt it. Especially if you're a Jew. There's no embarrassment. Certainly not. There'll be payback. Because the Torah says it's forbidden. Right, Book of Leviticus, chapter 18, it's forbidden. I'm not saying people don't have a desire for it. It's not a normal desire. If it would have been, the Torah would have said it's a good thing. Right, would have said it's a normal thing. The Torah says don't do it. Now, a person can have a certain disposition, okay? But we have dispositions for everything. Anger, stinginess, conceitedness, fill in the blank. Why is it, and it boggles the mind, that there's no embarrassment? Say, live and let live. Like, what do you care? What do I care? Has nothing to do with me. The Torah says it's forbidden. The Torah says you're not allowed to do. Who says the Torah is true? You want some proofs? I can give you proofs. You're not interested in proofs. You're going to say it's old, it's archaic, it's this, it's that. Let me do what I want. No restrictions. But what's the end result? Right? What is the end result? It's a disaster for Judaism. Right? It's a desire. So we all have negative things inside of us. We all live with certain contradictions, things we do better, things we don't do. But you see, we have to have a rudder. You have to have the anchor. And again, bottom line is the Torah true or it's not true? If it's not true, do whatever you want. I have no complaints. Prove to me it's not true. And for most Jews, Reforming can say, oh, I can never be Orthodox. Think about it. Does it make sense what you're doing? According to the eyes of the Torah. Have you ever studied it? Have you ever learned it properly? You can say it's only your perspective. It's out of ignorance. It's people saying, I want to do what I want to do. It's not about philosophy. It's not about not being homophobic or being homophobic or whatever. It's not about feminism. I mean, these things may be an issue. It's not the issue. Because they want to justify what they do. Oh, that's so archaic. Women are in the back seat. They can't have a public role. There's a reason why. You want to hear about it? No. You want to have a discussion and they'll just make fun. So it's like talking to a brick. It's like talking to the Russia. Right? The evil son. You're not giving him an answer. You blunt his teeth because he's not interested in hearing. So what are they going to do? They'll scoff. They'll mock. As someone said, I can't believe, Torah about intermarriage and this and that. It says it half a dozen times. What do you think, Torah was kidding? Webster's fifth definition only meant that generation, these nations. The Torah says it's forbidden. Finished. If a man marries a non-Jew, the kids aren't Jewish. Finished. It's the end of that generation. Right? Of that line, that spiritual line, gonzo. So my Rabbi here says, you have to subjugate yourself to God's will. If the Torah is true, then I have to take off this lining and work on my desires in this world. I'm allowed to enjoy ice cream. I can't eat ice cream that much. Right? It's going to make me fat. I don't exercise, whatever. You have to know how to curb desire. But if a person lives only for the sake of desire, he's a fool. Because what's going to happen when you're older? And you don't have the same desires, then what? Then you fill in desires with honor, other things. As once, many years ago, downtown Jerusalem, I saw a few women, walking, and, I saw this woman, got to be in her 70s, easy, mini skirt and dyed hair, red. I'm like, you got to be kidding. Once the desires go, once, the body gets older, what are you trying to do? Regain it. Get at your age. I mean, people don't want to because they see, their life is gonna, it's gonna be over relatively soon. They want to still have that enjoyment or whatever. But how long does it last? So you tell me, a whole lifetime. How's it given up? If you don't work on it, you subjugate yourself to the whim of your desires. And wherever your desires take you, that's where you go. And that's what you do. So that's the point over here. Is that this uncircumcised heart means that a person is striving only in desire. And desire is going to take him away from his Creator. It's going to take him away from doing the right thing. And will kill them spiritually in the process. So the Torah speaks many times, about moral issues. Not to steal, not to speak badly against others, not taking revenge. A lot of different things. But we're here in this world to curb desire. Not to just fulfill our obligation, give our kids a little bit, and live the life of the cardiac Jew. Because you know what? That cardiac Jew cannot pass down a feeling. And when you can't pass down that feeling, it gets diluted. So that next generation is a cardiac Jew, C-. It's not as strong. Generation after that, you're down to a D. Maybe even a D-. Generation after that, you're gonzo. If that. So the goal is to take what we learn, put it in our lives, and subjugate ourselves to be who we can be. Because without that anchor, without that rudder, then the desire is only going after what I want to do. And it's all about me. So essentially, that end result is going to be a disaster, one way or another. Even if a person stays on some level and some path, kids don't have a chance. Because what they're going to get is even more watered down. So the goal is to subjugate ourselves to what God wants from us, to strive and to work hard, and to reach our potential, to break our desires. Because if we don't subjugate ourselves to God and His will, what are we subjugated to? To whatever whim we think. Whatever desire we think. Now we may act on it, may not act on it, but we have no control. When a person's out of control, and there's no discipline in many different areas, miserable. Right? Someone once said, I'll just end with this. Someone once told me that, wow, you live this restricted lifestyle and can't do this, can't do that, on Shabbos, whatever. And I have this free lifestyle and you're 10 times happier than me. So I said, yeah, it kills you, doesn't it? Why should I be more happy? I live in a more restricted lifestyle. It's got 20 times, billion times more meaning. Because there's always something to look forward to. There's always something to work on. You're never left killing time. Right? You're either going in the right direction or the wrong direction. But you want to move. You want to stay mediocre? Staying at a C-. You don't want to be there. You want to grow. You want to move. You want to become a better person. How are you going to do that? Well, guess what? The Creator made a book. Manufactured it himself. Passed it down to Moshe, gave it to us. You know what it's called? I'll give you a hint. It's called the Torah. Live it. Learn it. Practice it. So, I also have conversion classes. Anyone interested in conversion or staying in Noahide? I do 2 question and answer sessions every week. Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock in the morning, New York time. I also have a class, Duties of the Heart. We're doing actually Shar B'Tachon, the gate of belief in God. Working on our belief in God. That's every Tuesday, 9 o'clock at night. New York time. I also have a website, a subscription website. It has all kinds of good things on it. It has the entire book, Derech Hashem, class I gave on that, in the way of God, about why God created the universe, purpose of man, reincarnation, etc. In the middle of the ways of the righteous and path of the just. It has all my videos on the Parsha, Tanakh Talk, all my question and answer sessions. I have 107 of those. So there's a lot to look at, a lot to gain. If anyone wants to contact me, you can find me at Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on Facebook, or you can send me an email, rabbichaimkoffman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. I want to thank everyone for listening. Everyone have a great Shabbos.